Okey-doke, sorry.
All right. Review the REMAC minutes of January, any additions, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval? Aye. Approved. Remember to let Dr. Markowitz handle the next, looks like 4 bullet items that might.
I have, Gus, if I may, I have a letter here, a very short letter I can read into the record with relative to Dr. Markowitz's request.
Okay.
Addressed to the REMAC and the Council, he'd like to request that the ARMS consider and approve entry for his 11 EMS squads into the CPAP application by Basic Life Support Providers pilot program being administered by the Finger Lakes region. Finger Lakes is doing all the data collection on each CPAP use by BLS providers. Any CPAP usage by a BLS provider within one of his squads will be reported within 24 hours via fax in accordance with the procedures outlined. And he has the full approval of the Finger Lakes region to get into this program should the REMAC and ARMS approve of it.
All right. Dave, do you want to expand on that? This is also, is this a demonstration project?
It is a demonstration project that's ongoing. And there's other agencies or regions that have joined in and are piggybacking on. There were actually a couple letters that I gave. One was to say, requesting the ARMS region, REMAC to approve ARMS region to join into the project or the pilot program as a piggyback onto the ongoing study. And then there was another letter from my agencies, if it was approved, then to join on to the study. And then there's another letter that I requested that we maybe forward on after approval, or if we get approval from the REMAC, to Andy Johnson.
Okay.
Requesting us to join into the study. So there's 3 letters there, but the whole premise is it's an ongoing study. They're bringing CPAP to a BLS level with the idea you're still going to be linking up with ALS, and we're just requesting to join into the study to help collect data to add to the final approval for.
And how many regions across the state now engaged in this?
I think there's 4.
We would be the 5th.
Yes.
Do we, as a region, need to dive into the region and then agencies can sort of get approved under that umbrella, or can agencies?
I think we need to go as an ARMS region, and then I'm going to request within the ARMS region for my squads to join into it.
Okay.
But I believe it's a regional thing.
I believe you're right there, Dave.
All right. So while we're just talking about it, so BLS would initiate CPAP as pre-ALS intercept?
That's the idea.
So these are patients who are obviously short of breath, so they warrant ALS
There's a
intercept.
full protocol of full training, and with the paperwork that I submitted to Phil and that we'll submit to Andy, it is all of Finger Lakes Region's training protocol, application letter, and testing. So we're going by everything that they're doing in their training procedures. And their
Dave,
protocol.
can you, if you wouldn't mind, could you make this protocol available to me electronically, and then I can make it available in turn to any other agencies that want to get involved?
Sure.
That'd be great.
So they would need their medical director's approval to become involved?
Yes, and it's about an 8-hour training, because you have to do full testing, lectures, and then demonstration. And we're doing the exact same stuff that everybody else has been approved to do.
And how long has it been ongoing elsewhere in the state?
I don't know when. 6 years.
6 months.
6 months. 6 months. Thank you.
I know that in teaching an EMT course and the material that I go through and review the Brady material before each class, and just did the respiratory, and I had to remove all the CPAP out of the training material from the Brady BLS course. So it is being used elsewhere, having made it to the textbooks.
Okay. All right, so there are 11 agencies named. Should we name them for the record?
Yes, the agencies include Lawrence, Skenevis, Maryland, Wells Bridge, Unadilla, Morris, Gilbertsville, Westford, Otsego, Hobart, Stamford, and Pinder's Corners.
Any further discussion about that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next, Dr. Markowitz approval of Pindar's quarters, I guess.
This is just a formality because we received his paperwork a while back, but since our last REMAC meeting.
All right, and Walton returned to ALS, is that also?
That's a little bit more than a formality. Walton, the Walton squad certification inadvertently lapsed for a short period of time. So as a result, the REMAC has to approve their return to full ALS and BLS med privileges. Otherwise, they're kind of in a limbo.
All right, so now they're fully compliant with
They're fully
ALS.
compliant at this time. There's no problem.
Okay. All those in favor? All right. Pindar's Corners, inclusion of the BLS glucometry program.
We have the paperwork and it's all complete. It's just a question of, it's all complete except for our regional approval on it.
Okay. All those in favor? Glucometry never killed anybody. All right, so, you know, at least not that we're aware of. Informational, let's skip the informational stuff. Approval of Mid-County Ambulance Controlled Substance Plan.
I sent that out to everybody with the signature sheet on the 15th of March. It's complete except for regional approval. It's been signed off on by all parties necessary.
And their medical director is?
Their medical director, I believe, is Terry, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look at the signature sheet, but all the signatures are complete.
Any discussion about that? I think Gavak would have the most contact with them as the squad, right? He's on the phone. All those in favor? All right. Any objections to Mid-County Controlled Substance Plan? No objections. We'll approve that. Approval of Broad Alban.
Now, there's a question about Broad Alban, Gus. Broad Alban Ambulance called me yesterday. They have submitted, they have their medical director's signature and approval, but they submitted the appropriate paperwork to St. Mary's Hospital in Amsterdam, and it has not been cycled through the hospital attorney yet for full approval. So I made the suggestion that I in turn would make a suggestion to the physicians this morning that they approve it contingent upon full approval by St. Mary's Hospital, and that we would not send an approval letter to the state until and unless St. Mary's Hospital has signed off on it completely.
And that's a required element of the...
That is, yes.
And their medical director is on board?
He's on board. That's Dr. Quinn, yeah.
All right, so motion is to approve Broad Alban pending receipt of hospital agreement. Any opposed to that? All right.
Gus, can we go back to Mid-County? Sorry,
Sure.
I was on the phone. We have some serious QA/QI issues that we're going to be bringing up in executive session. I don't know if maybe you guys might want to wait before you move on that till at least.
I think they already moved, Tom.
Okay. All right.
Well, I think we can reconsider our motion. I mean, you were on the phone when I was jokingly advancing the agenda. But I think we should hear whatever concerns there are before we do that.
That's fine.
And
The informational note about Ativan, I just wanted everybody to be aware that if they hadn't seen it, and I did send it out electronically to everybody when we got it, that the state now is making a point that Ativan cannot be kept on ambulances as an ALS, part of the ALS formulary, unless it is in a refrigerated compartment.
And we have all received the DOH policy on alternative medication formulary.
I have copies of it here also, and hard copies here this morning, if anybody
I
would like one.
asked Mary if she would give us a 40-word summary of this.
Twitter.
This has been in the works for many years. You've heard Andy Johnson speak at it at the state CMAC. The final piece to getting this put out and approval was the Ativan, the refrigeration. B&E wouldn't approve this without that. What this does is if you have a drug shortage, and your local regional protocols allow it, you can have an alternate substitution in the orders of preferred use. For example, Zofran. If they're out of Zofran, you can go to promethazine, and it gives you the dose and the route. This has been vetted by the state, so this does not require you to bring each substitution to the CMAC.
So what did they anticipate at CMAC, that regions would just adopt this as their backup plan for
Correct.
wholesale probably adoption? Right? This was developed by the CMAC.
Yes.
Mary, you would have to, if you're going to carry Ativan and or ketamine, you would need to update your controlled substance plan. You cannot just move to that due to a
Correct.
shortage,
You have
right?
you have to update us with the list, but also if you go to Ativan, you have to have refrigeration on board.
Right, but that requires, all of those drugs require a change or an addendum to your
Narcotic
control
plan.
schedule.
Correct.
Okay. So this is active now as a suggested substitution list,
Yes.
and it's valid through December.
And Mary, the shortage has to be recognized on the whole as a region, right? An agency just can't arbitrarily start using.
I would bring that up with your local,
I thought
how they
that's
want to
what it
handle
said
it.
in there, so that the regional council has to actually recognize that there is a shortage.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's got to go back through the REMAC
Yeah.
to approve it.
But sometimes shortages are localized.
Right.
That's what I'm
You have to be able to
saying.
deal with that.
What if in Delaware County, you guys can't get, one particular drug and it seems to be localized to that area?
It would still, but it would still
But it
have
would
to
still have to
funnel
go through your
the
REMAC, and they
It
would
can't be
recognize
your
that
local-
shortage.
Your local agency medical director.
Right.
Why? Why can't the local medical director be the one? Because if there is, specific to a small thing, we're approving this as a,
Right. I think this alternative list was developed so that local medical directors could make those decisions.
certainly sounds that way.
All right, each REMAC needs to evaluate which of the alternative medications is best for their region. Right in there, that's why.
I should mention that we all should take note that the 30 cc vial of 1 to 1,000 epi is now back in.
Right.
It's now back in, you may use it and dilute it appropriately as needed, and it's to be considered, each vial is to be considered for single patient use.
Might I?
You get even further into this on page 3. It says every 30 days after approval of the alternative formulary, the REMAC must evaluate the need to continue the use of the alternative formulary. And every 6 months after the approval of the alternative formulary, the REMAC must submit a written request for extension to the Bureau of EMS.
I guess that settles that question.
All right.
I just would suggest, though, that we know that there have been some problems in the past when they've done interfacility transfers, and if you don't hit a substitution list, that the provider makes sure that they tell them, okay, we don't have Ativan on board, or we don't have this medication, and that the hospitals get a list of this also, so that they would know what medication they can order, because you don't want the provider to take it upon themselves, okay, they ordered etomidate, and I don't have etomidate on board, so I'm going to use Versed. That's got to be, it's got to be written as a policy, or the REMAC approve that. You're going to have the provider can't make that decision. It's got to be made by the director.
Well, I would think the REMAC would put this policy out to the hospitals.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They should do that.
All right. So this does look like a more than informational item for us to consider at the REMAC today. So the first thing would be, Phil, can you continue the email chain of this document to all regional hospitals
Sure.
and pharmacies,
Mm-hmm.
so that they're aware, and refer them specifically to page 6.
I'm sorry, what page is that?
Page 6 is
Page
the
6.
actual grid of alternative drugs that's active now through the 31st.
I can do that tomorrow.
And that may come up as squads get restocked at hospitals, right? So the pharmacists are gonna need this to refer to if they're out of those drugs.
Yeah, it ought to go to pharmacies and ED directors at least.
I think that, that to handle the one-offs, where you're either leaving a hospital or you're on a scene and you don't have the first choice drug in the protocol, to use the alternative, I think you just need to note that the first choice drug is unavailable.
Right.
I mean, that would be your backup. If somebody queries, why did you use that drug? Well, because the protocol called for Zofran, and we didn't have it. So you guys were out.
Yeah, just document that. But I think with the REMAC approval, I think that creates some local variability, so you can do that on a case-by-case basis.
And then the other thing is to notify the REMAC of any potential. That would also protect the agency and the individuals in the agency to say, we went to use Dancitron and we were out, or we weren't restocked with that, we were restocked with, you may have already been restocked with one of the alternative agents.
You can document it at this level, so.
Right. And then Phil, is the state uploading from the regions all these drug shortages so they can stay on top of this?
Well, no, I hope they are, but I don't know.
What's going to happen down the road with this? This thing expires December 31. Do we then have to create our own, or is CMAC going to deliver us a new one by the end of the year?
That's a good question. Provided we have a CMAC, then I would think that they would renew it.
This whole thing of medication shortages, as Mark mentioned just a few minutes ago, it can be very, very localized. There are some drugs that we cannot get from our pharmacy at Nathan Latour that we can get from our vendor, our regular vendor. And I'm talking about controls now, but we are able to purchase, for example, 1 to 10 epi preloads. We could get those with no problem at all from our vendor, and the hospital just didn't have them. Now there are vendors, so I'm advised, that have preloaded atropine available, and the hospital, the last I heard, still didn't have preloaded atropine.
So the main proviso over all of this is in compliance with regional protocols. Right? So it's protocols that drive the right-hand side of this. Which protocols are we talking about? Right?
Now, according to this on page 5, the lesson plan guide, is that going to be just what the state provided here? And that's going to be agency director is going to be responsible for that, or who's going to be responsible for the education of the providers on this?
I think we need to build it into all our regional training. So the drug section just got bigger.
Well, yeah.
I think to do, individual medical directors, it's hard to document, and it would be highly variable. So I think if we don't have a curriculum for all of these agents, I don't think propofol appears in our protocols, right, for anything.
No, it does not.
So we could modify this list by scratching that out. And if there's anything else on this thing that is not in our protocol, we can just cross them out and then direct the education to what remains and develop a regional training program that basically fills in this rift education. So it's a training committee deliverable.
See how easy that was?
Well, won't that kind of bring us back to where we're at now, and cross off the drugs that aren't currently in our program here?
Yeah, I mean,
Now
that
you've
kind
got
of fits the
diazepam in
purpose.
there.
Not really. You don't want to go down a road where you're outside of protocol.
I understand that.
And it's not going to be, I don't know that it's going to be huge. Well, if the region can adopt this, but I think we need to adopt it with sort of regional distinctions. Propofol is listed here as an induction agent. It's often used post-intubation, so an intubated patient going down the road might have a propofol drip. And to maintain a propofol drip, is that in conflict? It's not a conflict with this. So to maintain an ongoing drug, you need to be educated about propofol.
Right. I mean,
It's part of
generally,
our
we're
SCT
We're dealing,
program.
yeah, it's part of the SCT program, but that's interfacility, which really doesn't fall under protocol,
Right.
so to speak.
And we, in our protocol, our EMS field protocols, we don't use protocol as an induction.
No.
No.
That's good. Because most of the hospitals don't. Okay, so anything else besides propofol in this grid that needs to be stricken for our regional non-interfacility protocol?
Yep, and that's one thing. You took that away for confusion.
So Dave, what's the issue?
I'm just a little concerned going from 1 to 10,000 to 1 to 1,000.
That's why it was removed, but it turns out there's a lot of agencies, Beth refers to it as the party flag, that have been using it.
For 1 to 1,000.
Yeah, when
But
you've
that-
got,
but
when
that's an
you,
option if 1 to 10,000. But 1 to 1,000 is what everybody carries, and then 1 to 10,000, or 1 to 10,000 is what everybody uses, and 1 to 1,000
is an alternative if you can't get the 1 to 10,000
Right.
ampules.
But it's been
Or-
removed previously to this,
Yeah,
it's
we're
not on
taking
state
it.
formula.
Yeah,
We're
and
trying to get
B,
rid of
we
that.
had it in ours because we have extended transport times at
Right.
times where you run out of your epi pretty quickly when you carry the ampules.
There's also enabling pharmacies to substitute, right? They don't have 1 to 10,000
Right.
when they restock your box. We could do it 1 to 1,000, and we have to know the difference. Yeah. Right?
When it was removed, probably 4 or 5, 6 years ago, it was because of a safety issue,
Right.
safety concern.
Right.
So we just
We
reintroduced
have to,
it.
we have to maintain our regional protocol.
As I said before, I think I said here, Mid-State had the same problem with the epi 1 to 10,000, not being able to get the ampules. They put out an advisory from their REMAC. This is how you train your people to overcome that with the 1 to 1,000. And put out guidelines on how to use the 1 to 1,000 in an arrest situation.
All right, so I was just informed that the following medications are not part of our regional formulary at the present time. Promethazine, droperidol, metoclopramide, lorazepam, which is good since we don't have refrigerators unless we put it on the ice with cooling IV fluids. Ketamine, propofol, that's good. Hydromorphone, remifentanil, and remifentanil, so those are all, and lorazepam. So that leaves us with, so the first row leaves us with Benadryl.
I think they're not part of our regional formula, but I think they're part of every paramedic's original education.
They're part of the state formula.
Yeah, they're part of this.
Yeah.
So every paramedic has been trained at some point.
So we should, do we know what REMO is doing with the adoption of this grid?
This just came out, so they haven't had a meeting.
They only came, I only got it yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
It's dated the 15th, but I only got it yesterday afternoon.
Was this meant to be an order of preference, A, B, C?
Yes.
Yes.
It spelled that out in the first 6 pages somewhere.
It's not availability, right? There's no evidence that promethazine is more available than diphenhydramine.
No.
The
So
question
what
I
do
would
we
have is
have?
for seizures, we're gonna take Valium back out. Most agencies already had Valium, while they may have changed their plan, based off of the protocol changes. Really, that's the only other alternative we have.
We didn't take Valium in.
I thought you just
Lorazepam.
wrote it off your list.
No, lorazepam,
Oh, sorry.
not diazepam.
Put the phone down.
So we still have midazolam, which is on our formulary.
And the other question I would have is, has the state had made any decisions or thought about fentanyl? We can't get it based off of the policy statement in the package, 50 and 2 mLs. But we can get 50 and 5 mLs all day long.
Nope, it's very specific. It's going to be in the 50 and 2. The 2
I mean, I've had it ordered for 8 months. And there's just no sign.
Now, that's strange, because Nathan Latour has it readily available.
I was gonna say, you're the
Fox
first
has it
person I've
readily
heard,
available.
I would look at your supplier, because I've not heard fentanyl as a shortage.
No, we haven't had a problem getting it.
Nathan Latour
St.
has it
Mary's,
readily
St. Mary's
available.
can't get it in the 2 mLs. We've ordered it and ordered it and ordered it.
And that's the only way our pharmacy and our hospital carry it, is 2 mL.
They have it in 50 and 5 mLs, but not in the 2.
That's strange.
So, which brings the next question. I have to amend the plan to say I can get it from other suppliers. And in case of a shortage, does that require a contractual obligation with those suppliers?
Yes, it does.
So I have to go to Nathan Latour and get a contract signed, go to More Medical, get a contract signed.
And in there, it has to state that it will only be supplied in that vial size.
So Phil, in addition to sending this to all the pharmacists in the region, can we also ask them for any opinions they have about this grid and what they would see as the...
I'll request feedback, absolutely.
Not so much, you know, yeah, just ask them blanketly about that grid and is this something they can see themselves doing?
Sure.
At the same time, we should probably ask REMA what their approach is to this. So I think we should adopt it in principle, but this actual grid, which is where the patient care specifics get identified, is, to me, a little bit unknown what this is going to look like. When squads go in to get refilled and some medication is out, what's their on-board alternative?
I can ask Mike Daly for a little feedback on it.
So I would say that most of these, in your boxes now, ALS providers, do you have at least one of these alternatives in your box? You do, right?
I think for our Ross protocol, I don't think that it gets fentanyl or Versed for that, so I shouldn't.
Ibuprofen is the only thing I think I see that's not. And, yeah,
Where do you see ibuprofen?
next to Ketorolac.
But think about it. You know, us overdosing somebody with versus them not to.
And then next to the midazolam C, Schedule 4.
Yeah, so we do have some coverage,
And next month it's gonna be.
which is good.
Like you said, I don't think
It's a little bit south of the border.
this is perfect.
It's the Mexican version. All right, so it's a step forward. We have a suggested method. So the method is, I like the method, you know, like this is the suggested CMAC grid. Mary, is CMAC going to revisit this before this expires on December 31st?
I don't even know if there's gonna be a CMAC
Is
in
it
it.
anything to look at?
So we're on our own. We're like a lot of homeless people. All right, so we better sort of work with Remo and our local pharmacies to sort of nail this down for our region, and then we may have to revisit this before it expires so that we can approve whatever we have developed by that time. Any other comments, questions about this procedure?
Why did they put specific doses down on the alternatives? Is there a reason for that?
A lot of people love it.
I don't know, they might have pulled it from existing protocols. Did they pull it?
I'm not sure where they pulled it from specifically, but it was just, because any drug that's approved in protocol, there's always an associated dose and group with it.
Yeah,
So they just tried to close all the loop.
not leave it too open-ended.
Right.
Anybody have any further suggestions about how we handle this? All right, so we'll get it out to the hospital pharmacies. We'll see what Remo's going to do with this. We'll try to stay in sync with them in terms of formulary and the approach to this.
I just have a question. Is the Valium in the protocol, or is it just an approved substitution for Versed?
It looks like an approved substitution, yeah. I think
That's what you guys had changed before, even before this came out, right?
Yeah, I think we didn't think we needed like oodles of benzos on board, we just needed one. So that became bedazzling and surfaced for, you know, lots of other applications, including intubation.
We need to put that in, I guess we need to address those protocols in the event of a shortage. We've taken Valium out of the seizure protocol, but now it is an approved
Substitute.
Do we need to put back in that the dose of Valium is going to be 5 milligrams and repeat 5, you know, like it was in the old protocols? Or do you just say, oh, it's a substitute, you have free reign?
Well, for seizure management, it says if you're substituting, you know, for midazolam with diazepam, you would use 5 milligrams.
So you just based off, you're going to go
We
based
can,
off
yeah, I
that
think we
policy?
can, you know, probably the closer we adhere to this, the better we'll be, and the less work. That's the reason, and it can be repeated, obviously, through med control.
Right.
But that's a reasonable starting point.
So with our narcotics plans, if we're substituting midazolam or Valium for Versed or vice versa, if our plan only spells out Versed, then we have to change our whole plan or amend our plan, correct?
Yep.
Can you change your plan to say, in the event that this isn't available, we're gonna use this as a substitute?
You'd have to
type
show all
of
the
thing?
appropriate supplier agreements and sign-offs on it.
That's where this grid could be useful, right? Because if you
You
put
could
this
pre-plan
forward
a lot
with your
of stuff.
application, you could say, this is our plan to do this, and so you're sort of pre-approved.
Right, but you would have to put in there with the supplier agreement in the event of a shortage, you know, wherever you get your drugs from, it will be supplied in this format.
So that's where this might be very useful, talking to suppliers.
No, you can just put it will be stocked in the event of a shortage.
But I mean,
But you have to include that in your biannual report or quarterly reporting, as I keep sending in fentanyl reports with zeros on them.
Right.
Does anybody know why the shortage is continued like this? Why it seems to be getting worse?
I heard the president comment on it about 2 years ago, but I haven't heard anything since. Right, he did. I mean, it rose to that level, and he was scratching his head, and I don't think we know. I mean, or at least I haven't seen any clear explanation for it.
According to the news the other night, it was because of FDA stuff, you know, the quality measures involved, when they actually pull it offline from a certain supplier, it's offline for so long that it's causing a backlog on the other suppliers. Plus, they're not money-making, you know, these guys aren't producing them because they're all inexpensive medications. So there's no profit margin.
The other thing is that the quality testing out to independent labs, I believe, is backing up the process as well. That's the only other thing I've heard.
It's really weird that a hospital can't get some of these items, but we can get them through a vendor directly. That doesn't seem to make sense at all. It is what it is.
I think probably because hospitals are they're doing exactly the same thing. They're making substitutions internally with their formulary, in part based on cost and efficacy. Right.
Negotiate different prices.
All right. So we will have to revisit this, I think. Phil, any information you get from the pharmacist back here, and we hear from Remo.
I'll keep everybody in the loop.
You know, Remo at the same time is surveying providers regarding the protocols.
Oh.
Has everybody seen that?
I have not seen it.
I don't know if they pushed it out yet, but they were going to do Survey Monkey to all providers in the region and ask for feedback on the existing protocols as a prelude to modifying the existing protocols.
No, haven't seen that yet.
So
I'm sure I will.
You might, when you talk to Remo, you might say, did that go out? Because I only saw a few heads shaking yes, that they received the survey.
It hasn't gone out, but I know there's been discussion of it, that's coming from Dr. Daly.
Yeah,
We haven't got it yet.
Oh, okay,
It's
so
coming out.
you've heard about it?
Yeah.
They just
But-
discussed it at this month's REMAC meeting.
Okay, so maybe we could pull that, you know, and get that out. And that'd be a good place to comment about substitution. What's in the protocols now. All right, let's see.
I think it would be a good idea to get out some information from this discussion, especially about amending plans to all the services, so that they can include these alternative medications properly.
This will be right in the minutes, so I just make sure they get the minutes.
Yeah.
Do you send the minutes to all agencies?
I posted on our web and I sent it to, I sent it to a group, obviously all ARMS and REMAC members, and then there's a group of agencies that have specifically requested they get the minutes directly. I sent it to them.
Yeah.
And we always posted it.
Right, and I think our members here ought to go back to their county councils at least and get the word out.
So Phil, just to, so if we're going to push that out to agencies, we should just, I think, be clear about what we think from this grid now conforms to existing protocol. So for Zofran, the option is D. For etomidate, the option is A. For morphine, the option is A and B. For fentanyl.
Can I just go back a second?
Yep.
Isn't Zofran oral dose tablets also an option? It's also an option.
Yep.
It's already in the protocol. Do you need to add another one? That would be column E or notes.
Right. So we have two options, actually.
You have it both ways already.
Well, they're implying that if you run out of both forms of Zofran, you have some option. Right? I think they're, by the fact that it's listed on the left-hand column, they're saying if you run out of that drug in all its forms, you're left with alternative D. So we could say, if you run out of Zofran IV, you always have Zofran PO, sublingual. So etomidate would be A, morphine be A and B, fentanyl be A and B. We could scratch the next line of fentanyl, or we could actually say midazolam as a substitute for fentanyl. As a substitute for midazolam, we have diazepam, alternative B. For diazepam, we have midazolam. That's symmetric. Are you following this?
We don't have, wait a minute, we don't have Valium anymore.
Well, we've already talked about it.
Okay.
But is it in our protocol we don't have it?
Right.
But it was not approved like
Then
months ago.
remove.
Okay, so we probably do want to have it appear there because it sounds like we're going to need it if we run out of midazolam. Lorazepam, alternatives midazolam and diazepam. Ketorolac, there is no IV. I've never heard of IV ibuprofen.
Does it cost a lot of money?
Yeah, it's very expensive.
We don't recognize that name either. Caldolor. I thought it was probably a Mexican product. South of the border, you may use this drug. All right, so I think we should scratch that. I've never heard of it. It's got to be awfully expensive. I've never seen it.
We
So-
have that at the hospital, we use that.
You do?
Time to time.
Intravenously?
Mhm.
All right, so it's back in. We just, down south, we hadn't seen that. How does it work?
It works very well.
As good as Ketorolac?
Mhm.
Similar?
It seems to work faster.
It's interesting. All right, ketamine substitutions are A and B. Sodium bicarb, you're out of luck. Midazolam. What do we have to substitute there for chemical restraint? That's in our protocol now. We don't have anything. And we don't carry ketamine, right?
No, we don't, that's what I was just saying, we don't.
Droperidol we don't have either, right? So this is a blank slate at the present time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. We are seeing the bath salts and requiring huge volumes of benzos. So don't run out of the benzos.
Gus, just a quick aside, what kind of a volume of benzos do you find works on a bath salts patient? Or does
Yes, much as they take.
Yeah, I mean, usually they run out of the, you know, they empty the fixes and then they run downstairs and get more. You just keep going. I mean, there is no magic dose. It's just, you know, you're just trying to knock somebody down chemically, and it takes a lot. You know, I've heard, what, 50 milligrams of midazolam.
Put all of us down here.
I think Valium would be better drug for these guys. It's longer acting. So even for this protocol, Valium's still pretty cheap. I think it's probably going to make its way back into a protocol for lots of reasons. This being one of them. That's the problem you get into when you substitute only one drug in class, right? We tried to clean up the protocols, and now we're dirty.
Adding back, yeah.
Epi 1 to 1,000. It's a life-saving drug. I mean, Epi for anaphylaxis.
Right.
Even in the 1,000, 1 to 1,000, that actually is how it's given in anaphylaxis. And is there one more page? No. All right, so that's sort of where we sit right now relative to our protocols and what our alternatives are that are within protocol. And I would say when you talk to Remo, it looks like we need Valium back on in the protocol.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
That was my question is, you know, we have these collaborative programs. Should we try to stay in line with what these other regions are doing so that we don't end up, especially when it comes time to do updates, you know, going back and changing.
Right, no, we do want to stay on the same page, that's the whole point. Right.
Can I just point out something, Gus? Page 4 of 8, the last 2 paragraphs. In consultation with CMAC, FEMS has established the required outlines to be used by all agencies, regions, and court sponsors as a minimum requirement of objectives for any new medication added to the scope of practice protocols or regional and state medication formulary. Completion of all educational requirements must be kept on file for all personnel. It's an agency responsibility. So any of this that's added, the agency's got to be sure to do an in-service and document per page 5 that all this material is covered.
Yeah, so what about the idea of, once we sort of define that grid, regional educational thing that sort of is more encompassing than what we have now?
Right, I would think that could be a PowerPoint that could be just distributed on a disk or something.
So agencies could do it internally with their instructors.
Sure, if they could develop their own, but if the region wanted to do that, I think that would be
I think the quality control would be better, right? We'd have less variability.
With what?
If we did it, you know, if our training committee put it together.
Right.
And said, you know, for use. Is that a reasonable? Thank you, Joyce.
Sort of.
Sorry, Joyce.
Especially, well, no, not with the PCRs, but I'll work on it.
We should probably do it in concert with Remo. And if Remo's, you know, there were
Remo may
all the
already have, I
regions.
know they had the fentanyl. The fentanyl PowerPoint is already out, you know, that came out with the addendum. So they may already have all of this stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of our agencies have the fentanyl PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Made a point of sending that around to folks, you know, on request.
So this would be an opportunity to expand on that and do a much bigger list of drugs.
The only
Just from-
suggestion would be we would probably have to update it. I know that the PowerPoint that is going around has got old protocols in it. It's got the
Right.
2007 protocols, as opposed to the 2011.
All right. Any other discussion about alternative medication policy issued by the Department of Health? Under new business, I just have one item. I guess I would ask that it go out to all agencies, and that is just simply a reaffirmation of the need to adhere to protocol. In our region, we're seeing agencies bypassing local hospitals for non-indicated conditions. And so hospitals have been designated for certain things, STEMI and PCI care, stroke care, and trauma care. Nothing else is designated within the state of New York. And protocols say, you know, local hospital unless directed by online medical control. So we're seeing patients who are bypassing local hospitals, no online medical control, and the explanation is, well, we thought it was a good idea. Because it's a little dicey, long transports with shortness of breath patients. And I think you can infer what's going to happen with that patient. You can't necessarily know exactly what that patient's going to need. And I think the protocols were designed in part that way so that local agencies could stay local and not do longer transports and be out of their community for longer periods of time. So there is, sort of a natural handoff to interfacility agencies when locals drop off locally, but that's kind of where the system is right now.
What
We've seen it.
consequences are there, though, if a patient requests to go to a...
Well, that's different. I mean, patient
That's
request
what we're
is,
getting.
I think, something that has to be weighed. I don't know what the legal...
Is kidnapping if you insist on taking them someplace where they do not want to go. If they insist on a certain facility, and you inform them, and
This
you
is not a-
document that you
yeah.
inform them the consequences of an additionally longer ride, then
Or an inappropriate
it's
ride.
it's an informed consent at that point that they go to the hospital that they insist on going to. Otherwise, it is kidnapping.
All right, so in reverse, it can be a challenge. So they want to go local, but they really need to go to a STEMI center, a trauma center, or a stroke center.
We've
For-
generally not had that issue. I mean, if you tell somebody, listen, you're having a heart attack, this is where you need to go, I would say we almost have 100% compliance in regards to that.
Good.
The problem comes is I don't want to go to St. Mary's Hospital because I go to the VA. I mean, we have controls and policies in place based off of system status. If we have the things available, that's where they go.
Yeah, I think that is the one proviso that I didn't mention, the patient request.
And there is also, Joe, when he does a program, or when he does an agency visit, he talks about protocols with us, and he talks about the